Good morning, everybody. We want to welcome you back to the second day of our conference. Those of you that are online, as you get online and get here, please remember to sign in the chat for each session that we have today. I trust everybody that's here in front of me had a good evening. It seems like we're a little slow this morning getting started, and we have one panel member that we're waiting for her to get here, so she'll join us when she comes in. And this is a panel today on those who are actually working in the field. I announced yesterday we have some new ones. The new ones are on my left, and my seasoned one is on my right. So we're going to hear from some of their experiences, and we invite you to ask questions. Those of you in the audience here live, when you ask a question, Mike Townsend will bring the microphone to you to raise your hand, and he will come and let you ask your question. So we're going to get started here. I'm going to let everybody introduce themselves, and I'll start over here with Cassie.
I'm Cassie Pucket. I'm an LCSW, an LCADC, and an ICGC1, working to be my ICGC2, and I'm in the Davis County area, and I work in private practice.
Regina?
Okay, I am Regina Padilla. I am a LPCA. I'm working on, I take my test for my ICGC1 on the 31st. And I work in at North Key Community Care as a supervisor over MOUD services and a mental health therapist there. So.
I'm Hanna Onkst. I'm the clinical team lead at the Schwartz Center with New Vista. I'm LCSW and ICGC1.
So now you have our panel. If you want, you can direct a question to everybody on the panel or to one in particular when you ask your questions. So we're going to start out. I'm going to get us going here this morning, and this is for all three of you. Looking back on your early training, what is one thing you wish you had been emphasized more before you began working directly with clients experiencing gambling harm? What's something you wish you had known more about?
For me personally, how important it was, because I just went from substance abuse to gambling, and getting the family involved, basically, because it's really important, and to have someone take care of the finances besides that person immediately, because I didn't know about that originally. So
Yeah, I would say, like more skills on how to, like I have never worked in gambling before, so just more skills on how to, differentiate a lot of like substance use from gambling and other mental health conditions as well. So.
Yeah, I also thought about how much it would be, let me get my words together. How important it is to understand how much other people in our field, because I'm also in substance use, will dismiss gambling as harm.
Yes, they do.
I want to go back and I want to emphasize something that Cassie said, and that's about involvement with the family. When I had my training many years ago, the presenter that talked about the family, and I don't remember who it was, most of our early training came from individuals from New Jersey with the New Jersey Council. But one of the trainers said at that point, your chances of success for the gambler are greatly reduced if you cannot get the family involved. And I have found that to be very true. Partly because the gambler lives in such a mystical world that they think everything's going to be okay, and partly I think because they don't want to look at the harms they've caused their family, but there's a great deal of harm that is caused in the family of someone who is a gambler, and emphasize the role of domestic violence that happens in the family. And if you are working with someone who says, well, let the spouse be, or a parent or a child, anybody, be the one that's in control of the money of the family, that can set that person up for a great deal of harm as far as violence goes. So be very careful with that. I think that's one of the things that we lack across the board is we don't do a lot of financial work with counselors in preparation for working with gamblers. We're used to words and feelings. We're not used to numbers and money. And I'll speak about just personally, I'm not comfortable going over all the money stuff and helping them with budgets. That's in my agency, that's what we have case management for. But that's something that you can't ignore when you're working with the gambler. You have to take a look at those different impacts caused by the finances.
Yes. They don't come in just saying I'm an addict. They come in
No.
with, the relationship issues,
That's
the relationship issues, stress from, work, all that stuff, they come in with, financial crisis too. So, just putting all that together that's the task we have to work with.
And going on what Dr. Clark said about, because the domestic violence, it does really put the partner at a higher rate for that to happen. But so I always try, like if I'm working with a couple, to make the gambling disorder the third person in the room so that they can both, because they've both been hurt by it. And that way it's not, I'm mad at you, you're mad at me, you did this, you did that. It's my gambling disorder did this. And that kind of helps take some of the blame off of the individual and makes them feel a little less shameful all the times.
Our final panel member has been able to join us. Megan, would you introduce yourself?
Sure. My name's Megan Matthews. Apologize for being late. I am a CADC CCS in Covington at North Key.
Welcome to you as well, Megan.
Thank you.
Anything else on that first question or anything from the audience? All right, to the panel again. What skills or knowledge turned out to be far more important in real counseling practice than you expected it to be? Far more important.
Being comfortable talking about money. Like that is literally, because no one, and the word budget, you said that and I laugh because every time I say the word budget to any client that isn't, it's like the word diet. Like I'm taking all of your money, which means that you're taking all my fun, all the good stuff. And it's not that way. I had recently had to, when I started working with gambling clients, get my own budget because I didn't know where my money was going, and I thought, well, it'd be a nice thing to do. So I started doing that. So I use the same spreadsheets and stuff with my clients, and I was like, see, this is how much money you have coming in, this is where you have going out, and like, I like to call it, instead of like a budget, I like to call it a realistic spending plan. But if anyone has any cooler names besides budget that doesn't make everyone freak out,
That is.
I would love to know what it is. Because budget's just not nice.
I would say like sitting with and being able to sit with the ambivalence and not trying to fix it. Because that it's really important. We can't fix everything. They have to understand. They have to be ready. Just like with substance use, they have to be ready. So just being able to sit with that ambivalence and not just wanting to sit there and fix everything with them.
Well, I'm in a little different setting than everybody. I'm in residential for substance use, so my clients are usually higher acuity. So for me, suicidality is one of the most important ones just because it is so high with gambling clients. So most of the time, we don't talk about gambling until it's brought up usually, which is another question down on that I'll answer that part. But whenever I do the group on gambling, I always then, if they never mention suicide, ask about it then as well, which I do always, but I go a little more in depth then. And I'm trained in a specific suicide modality, so it's CAMS, so I use that a lot with them.
We all answer. I think for me, it's rapport building. 100%. Like I have to slow it down when I'm working with my gambling folks. So just the power of building rapport, taking my time in those introductory pieces is where I've noticed myself adjust the most.
For me, and I'm not new to this. I've been doing this gambling work for 23 or 24 years now. sometimes it's very hard to get the gambler to come back in your office. You may get, and I'm going to address residential too. You may get one time with them, and then they're gone. It's something like, I think the hotline will tell you, only about 40% show up that call, actually make it to the first appointment, and then it dwindles off of that, who makes it to a second and further appointments. My first appointment, I'm really big on establishing rapport, like Megan said. Even with substance abusers, I think you've got to get that hook in there. And my very first day of graduate school, in the very first class that I had, the teacher said, a professor said, make your office a reflection of you. And when they come in there, they'll find something that is of interest to them. I do a lot of wildlife photography, and I see mostly men, and they will come in and say something about the photography that I've got on my bookshelf, and I can, talk about that, and we kind of kick it off there. Or if they're wearing a ball team shirt, say, oh, do you like football? Do you like the Colts? Well, that's my favorite team. I had one guy the other day talking to me about NASCAR and how fast something went, and I could hold my own with him, and he was like, I really didn't expect you to be able to talk to me about that. So, a wide variety of interests and stuff to establish that rapport. But in my very first time with every single one of my gamblers, number one, I'm going to assess the suicidality, because you have to. You have to assess that every single time that you see them. Not just, well, I've had them for a year now. Doesn't matter. Every single time you make sure that they're safe, because of the rates being so high. Then secondly, the thing that I do, and it's an old tool, and there might be better things out there, but this one works for me. I Google, because I don't have it, I should make copies and just be able to pull it out of my drawer, but I Google what's called the letter V, like victory, the V chart for compulsive gambling. And this is something that's been around forever. And I pull it up and I will print it off and I will put it on my desk between the client and me. And especially if they're ambivalent about was it really a problem or not. And it starts up at the top of the V, and it goes, this is your big win. This is when it's fun and entertaining. And then it gradually goes down into the lose, that's the winning stage. Then it'll move down into the losing stage, where they begin to chase their losses, where they become more preoccupied. There's a loss of control. And along the way, I'm saying, how has this affected you? Well, it hasn't. Okay, well, let's go to the next one. Oh, well, yeah, I do chase my losses. I go back the next day. And it moves from the losing stage down into the desperation stage, where they may be committing illegal acts. They may be switching up the kind of gambling that they're doing. If they were an escape gambler, then they may be playing roulette and being an action gambler. And then at the very bottom of the V is where the suicidality comes in. So where are you on this downward spiral? And the other part of the V is, once you get into recovery, how you're climbing out of the hole that you've dug for yourself. They're not on this side of the V. So I use that tool to help break the ice, help assess where they are, and help them get into, well, maybe there is a problem that's going on with me. We've had some more join us in here, so again, if you have questions, just raise your hand and we will get the microphone to you.
Yeah, and I was gonna say that chart I use when I'm trained, like doing presentations in group and stuff, with IOP and groups and stuff like that, and just letting them understand and like be aware, like, because maybe they don't have an issue, but everybody else, that's making everybody aware that gambling is a big issue, and that's how I've been getting that out there, is the V chart.
One of the things that you have to do when you're becoming at level 1 certified is you have to have 100 hours of working with gambling clients. And I said yesterday that seems like, oh my gosh, that's a long time, 100 hours, I'll never make that. And it really goes by very, very fast. Because you can do, like Hanna said, especially in a residential program, or if you work in a SAP program in a jail. And if you want to have mine, just see me and I'll send you the PowerPoint. You don't have to recreate it. You're welcome to use, I have a little PowerPoint designed for group, and I've shared it with all these ladies.
It's wonderful.
And it kind of identifies what gambling is. It identifies some harms from gambling towards families, towards the children. But at the very end, I have the problem gambling severity index. It's a 9-question. And I did this just last week. I went into group, introduction to gambling. I had 10 men in that group. And I said to the group, I said, there's going to be 3 of you in here who will score significantly high on this. And they're looking around and saying, no, it's not me, I'm not doing it. So I went through the PowerPoint, we took the 9-question test, I let them self-score it, because I've got the test on the PowerPoint, and I had 3 men score significantly high in there. And the reason I picked the number 3 is because Alcoholics Anonymous will tell you that 30% of an AA meeting actually could benefit from going to Gamblers Anonymous. So right there, I had 3. And I counted, when you're looking at counting 100 hours, I had 10 men in there that I taught them about gambling, that I gave them an assessment. That's, 10 hours we did group. And then I found 3 of them that I can continue with in one group. So it's not real hard to come up with your hours. For experienced counselors, and you all have some experience here, what moment or experience most changed how you approach gambling counseling today?
I know for me, I'm in long-term recovery from substance use disorder myself. And so I looked at gambling as, oh, stop gambling. Like, don't do that. It's pretty easy. Just don't go to the casino. Don't buy the lottery ticket. And I had my own bias. I very much was uneducated on it until Dr. Clark helped me learn a lot more. And now that I'm educated on it, it's just this desperation. You have the same, everything is the same. You have the same problems or worse. And I learned that by having a client who had $5 left in her pocket and drove with her children at her house asleep at night, 45 minutes an hour to the casino to play that $5 and didn't have gas to get home. And I had never, like, when you look at things that like, oh, I would never do that. I would never do that. It's the dissonance between those two things. And she was such a good mom. So to see that she had done that had broke her in her disordered gambling, that definitely removed my bias then. And I took it much more seriously, as it should be.
Yeah, for me, like working with substance use, there's always that shame, the guilt, and everything. And I've just noticed it's a lot stronger when we're working with the gamblers. Like the shame, the guilt, everything is a lot stronger, and that's when all the other problems start. Getting deeper. Like the health problems, suicidality. So just being able to just help them with that, get them through the shame, the guilt, and fixing themselves. Like that's very important. That's what I've been able to.
The moment for me is, so I did the 30-hour training in 2024. And I started a group like 6 months after that. And I never really thought about how many people would have gambling along with the substance use. But the amount of people that started to identify after that group was kind of astounding. So I think through doing that group, it really opened my eyes of how much gambling is impacting our community now.
For me, it would be with a client I've had for years, a retired lady on a fixed income living in subsidized housing. I always felt like she was managing it well. Finances were never a conversation that we had, but through increasing my knowledge with gambling, one day she just mentioned to me that she goes to CheckSmart. She had to go to CheckSmart that day, that it was part of her routine. And I'm like, oh, really? You know, and I have my thoughts and feelings about that whole process. And I'm like, you know, is that something you do often? And she shared that for years, gambling and losing her money, her monthly money, her check, 1 month, started a domino effect of having to pay back debt, go to CheckSmart, pay her rent, get paid, pay off CheckSmart. You know, that whole process had been going on for her for years, and we never discussed it. It never came up once in therapy. So now that, because of that experience, I do about 35 hours a week, 28, 35 hours a week with clients face to face. I just go ahead and assume that they have a gambling issue and try to rule it out. That they have some type of a dependency on a system out here that's taking their money.
I learned a valuable lesson probably after working with gamblers for 6, 8 years. And I had the sweetest little man and his wife to come see me. And he was in his early 70s. She was as well. And he was gambling a significant amount of money and amount of time. They didn't live in Owensboro. They lived close by, but not in Owensboro. He would get so angry at her because, and at me, because we represented, you got to stop, and he wasn't about to stop. He would go to the local racetrack. He would cross into Indiana and go to the casino. He was buying lottery tickets. They were on fixed income. He had a little part-time job. Just the sweetest little man. Kind of like your grandpa. And he delivered, like, in our town we have a drugstore that the little old man delivers the medications to different places. I don't even remember what he delivered, but it was some kind of little delivery job like that. They ended up, and I saw him for 6 to 9 months, I guess. They ended up divorcing. And I hated to see that. I mean, these little 73-year-old people that had been married forever got divorced. She had to move out. He would get up in the middle of the night and go to a gambling venue. And she would wake up and he was gone. And she moved out, got her own place. The kids wouldn't have anything to do with him. And when she left, he quit coming to see me, which made sense. It was a little bit of time, a few months, and he got in trouble with his job. He started stealing from his job. It was a few months later, I get a call from her. And she said, I want to tell you, I want to give you an update on things. And I don't even remember his name at this point, he is in the ICU because he attempted suicide. And he had shot himself. And I'm thinking, well, you know, it's just, and I really, at that point, I'd been trained in suicide, such a big deal. But I wasn't like, okay, they said that, but it's probably not going to happen. I had a suicide attempt on me, on my caseload at that point. Then she further went on to say that the doctor that was treating him went into the ICU to his bed to talk to both of them. And he had the chart there, and he looked at the chart, and he looked up and he said, I know what's causing this. And he looked at the medications, and if you were in Dan's thing he did yesterday, his presentation yesterday, he touched on it. And I was the one in the back. He said, you know, the medicine for restless legs. And I said, Mirapex. My guy was taking Mirapex. And I had not educated myself enough to know that for many people that are taking restless leg medications, that can cause severe gambling. The ICU doctor took him off of the Mirapex. he never gambled again the rest of his life. This is not the first one that I've had that was on a medication that got into some serious harm. This was the only suicide attempt I've had in my gamblers that I know of. But that changed me to the point where I became, and some of you've heard me talk before, and they've heard me preach it to them. This whole thing about suicide, you got to keep assessing for the suicide part. And the first thing that I do now when I get somebody to come in and see me, that comes to see me for gambling, is I take a real good look at their medications. Because it's not just the ones for restless legs. It's also some Parkinson's medications, L-Dopa, which sometimes is used for depression, Abilify. I've run into a young man that was put on Abilify who was developing a gambling problem. He was in our residential program. So that changed me and my trajectory. I can't emphasize that enough. Look at their medicines and pay attention to the suicide part. I've had them with me as much as 9 months. I recently have had someone from another part of the state that I see through telehealth that had about 9 months of not placing a bet, relapsed, and I'm worried about his living girlfriend. They broke up, and I'm concerned about him, and did some safety planning with him.
Yeah, and I know that changed you, because when I started doing supervision under you for this, that was one of the first things was, what medications are they on? And I worked at places where they don't ask those types of things, and like one of the first questions I now ask is, tell me what your meds are, and they're like, well, what's that got to do with gambling? And I'm like, it might not have anything to do, but let's just rule that out, because that's a simple thing to just rule out, and then we'll move forward. And it happens way more often.
And those medications also affect other behavioral addictions.
Yeah.
As Dr. Barrett calls them, addictions without substance, behavioral health addictions. Anybody else? All right, what misconceptions about gamblers or gambling addiction did you personally have before working in the field?
That they wouldn't be able to have any type of withdrawal symptoms, because they weren't putting a substance into their body, but their brain chemicals and everything, neurotransmitters, are still doing the same thing. So you're going to be cranky, and I mean, you're not going to go into withdrawal like you would if you were coming off of opiates. But yeah, I've definitely seen some people have some, and then they'll use other things maybe to fill the void, unfortunately, but definitely that.
Yeah, I would say, just like with, substance use, if the consequences are bad enough, then, they'll stop. But, that's a big misconception, because, even with, mental health issues, they see there's, stuff's getting out of control, they don't seek help. So that's a big misconception. That's,
Yeah, I know we've talked a lot about suicidality, but mine was they're not going to die from it. Working in substance use, yeah. But obviously now that I know that that's not true.
For me, it was about losses. The Rough River training really changed my entire concept on losses. We cannot use amount of money lost to determine severity of problem. So the person losing $50 a week can be just as sick with problem gambling as someone who's losing $5,000 a month. Because for me in my personal life, excuse me, losing $25-50 a week, I shouldn't do it. It's irresponsible, but it wouldn't do me under. So why, bringing my personal self to the situation, I'm in early problem gambling, I may have thought that wasn't a big deal. Like, oh, she's just losing $50 a month or $50 a week, or, We've got a little problem. And that's just simply it's not true. So the amount of loss and the frequency of gambling doesn't equal severity.
Yeah, and I know yesterday somebody talked about, like, if you have $10 but you spend $5, that's more than if you have $100 and you spend $5. So it's in perspective for that too.
Yeah.
Especially because the majority of my clients are unhoused, so I always have to think about in that sort of way.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
How have you moved from shame and denial into openness and engagement with them in treatment?
Maybe let one of them start so they don't have to go out.
So I have my office set up to reflect me. It's very colorful and pink, and but create a safe space where people no longer feel that they have to hide from their shame. Providing a compassionate view and reflecting their ambivalence back to them. They're there for a reason, even if it's court ordered. What are we going to work on anyway? And then approaching with curiosity rather than guilt or accusatory.
Yeah, like she said, like normalizing ambivalence, like it's part of you wants to stop, but part of you isn't ready. So, that's a big thing. And, separating the person from the behavior as well.
I like to attack shame with shadow work.
Okay.
I really do. Shame, if a client's telling me that there's something wrong with me, well, let's talk about what's wrong with you. Let's fact check what you think is wrong about you. Let's run that through the truth meter. And we almost always, if a client is 100% shameful, with shadow work, we can almost always get that down, to some varying degree. I love shadow work for shame.
Can you explain shadow work for some that may not have been in the field as long?
Yeah, shadow work is just taking a look at other versions of ourselves that may not be so helpful sometimes. Also taking a look at the fact that the person that helps us do wrong has some value, and we don't need to cut oxygen off to that version of ourselves that makes bad choices. We need to look at that person, love them, invite them to the table, their importance. They have value and the skill set to, my lady that's been living like that financially for years, that is not a weak woman. That's strength. It takes strength to get up every day and endure that every single day. Every month she'd get her little check and she'd have to go through her little process that absolutely was set, in place by gambling. And so shadow work, it's about loving those versions of ourselves that are less palatable.
For me, I'm bad, and then I did something bad. And most clients come to me feeling, or have been made to feel, that they're bad. We have a lot of connections with money and shame. So mostly the moral dissonance of like, oh, I've done this because I had a client, maybe steal $50,000 from his parents, and they don't know about it. That's not something that person would ever do in a normal daily life. But now that they have a disordered gambling issue, they're doing those types of things. So that moral dissonance, and going back to, I try to make the addiction a third party. That way they don't have to, it's like, you did this while you were in addiction. This is not you. This is not who you are. This is you in this situation. So like, once we can separate you from that, then we can move past the shame and the denial usually. But the shame I worry about the most usually. And if I have to, if I feel like it's going to be any use to the client or beneficial, I will self-disclose some that I'm also, in recovery, so I understand the shame and the denial and doing things you never thought you would, and that you can change.
All right. What warning signs and patterns did you not recognize early on, particularly when you were treating substance users, that you now would be looking for with gamblers?
Frequent housing issues. multiple evictions, unexplainable poverty, someone who works full-time, and it just seems like that their financial strain is incongruent. There's an incongruency there that doesn't make sense, that doesn't, I see them every week, every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks, and we've got the same financial issues. They never seem to really thin out or lessen. I regret not leaning in with gambling screening with those clients, earlier in my career.
Yeah, the emotional triggers are, often stronger indicators, rather than the financial issues that they're facing. So, yeah.
For me, it's normally when they get quiet. They don't talk about anything. Like, oh, everything's fine and did this. And I'm like, last week you were having a major hurricane meltdown and now everything's just fine. That's normally when they get quieter. It doesn't mean things for them are getting better. It just means maybe they're getting more shameful, or a lot of times they're afraid that they're going to let us down as the therapist. Right. And they have so much shame about that. And I'm like, I will tell them, you cannot do anything at all that's ever going to, I will never have a negative thought about you because of something you have done. That's not what we do. But, so that's, yeah.
I'm trying to think. So there's a part of our assessment where we talk about things they like to do for fun, their leisure activities. Whenever that's the only thing they can name that they do.
I think for me, I'll be interested what Hanna might have to say about this. Working mostly with residential clients, they kind of look at this as it's still fun. It's just part of what we do. It's very normalized, and they can find kindred spirits very easily being in a residential setting. And when we give them little bits of time, after 2 weeks, the way ours is set up, after 2 weeks, they have a little more freedom, and they're ending up at the historical horse racing venue in our community. It's not a casino. I have to get the terminology straight. And then we've had a few of them in residential or have just left residential and are doing our step down, who may still live in our housing, but they're at a lower level of care, who come back with a big win. And that's my reason in saying all this is if you're in a residential setting, please be screening for this. Please be screening, because you've got it going on whether you want to or not. The largest, years ago it was another program that I ran, the largest amount of people I ever discharged in one day was 9 out of about 28 people, because of the gambling ring that was going on in the residential program.
I'm in ASAM 3.5, so they don't
They'll get
explore. But they get rec time and things, so they'll play cards and things, and just kind of watch that part whenever I'm just like, what are we doing for recreation, y'all?
But even in a 3-5 where they can't leave, they can find things to gamble
yeah, that's what
about.
I'm saying.
They can't leave in a prison, and there's a lot of gambling in prison.
Yeah.
But I'm saying to that extent, they can't go to Red Mile, so.
What counseling approaches, tools, interventions have you found to be the most effective, and which ones don't seem to work as well?
I'm motivational interviewing.
I was going to say motivational
that's-
interviewing all the way.
All the way.
Yes, all the way.
You all find that one effective?
Yes.
I don't.
Yes.
I don't.
And CBT, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. But motivational
Occasionally.
interviewing is-
Seems like sometimes some of my folks are so depressed that creating, future goals and that magical question, if you could do anything, what would it be? Or if you could be anywhere, what would... Sometimes I can't seem to connect with that like I would like to. Mm-hmm. I'm glad it's working for y'all. Maybe I'm going at it wrong.
I use MI to, roll with the ambivalence and use the reflective listening skills, the ORs, I love all these acronyms, darn cat, you know, those things.
Yes.
I help them express their autonomy and focusing on collaboration, not really on control. And then, of course, you said CBT, so like addressing the cognitive distortions, like the illusion of control, the gambler's fallacy, magical thinking.
Or near wins.
Yeah.
Yep.
Chasing wins.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do like
Yes.
that one, yeah.
And then
Fallacies.
harm
Yes.
reduction,
Yeah.
Definitely, yeah.
one of the biggest ones for me.
Sometimes DBT for clients that might have bipolar, just because they can help separate that emotion in the moment from it. Teaching them those skills can help sometimes too. I don't use that nearly as much.
I'm old school enough that I am pretty much Rogerian in my approach. I'm not even sure that Carl Rogers is even taught in graduate school anymore. But meeting them where they are, unconditional positive regard,
Yes,
empathy, and congruence. And I really think I do well with the congruence because they've come back and said, I know what to expect from you every time. I know I'll be accepted in here and, non-judgmental zone. And I think when I started working with gamblers, my gamblers have changed over the 24 years or so that I've been doing this. They have changed. In the beginning, I had mostly older people and a whole lot of older women. And now I will occasionally get an older person who's gambling, especially an older woman who is maybe doing bingo or lottery tickets. We had a guy that was on the board that talked about his little gray-haired ladies in eastern Kentucky and their bingo cards. And some of you are shaking your heads. You know what I'm talking about from eastern Kentucky.
Yeah.
And the approach with them is very different than my approach now with my mostly younger sports gamblers. And I have to be more direct with the younger sports gamblers, and they don't care about establishing rapport nearly as much. And they're not as good to keep coming back. If you look at the pathways model, which is the one that I tell you guys to use for your assessment tool, the little gray-haired ladies fell into the emotionally vulnerable, and you had to unpack a lot of trauma and do peeling away some layers of the onion, so to speak. The sports gamblers that I see are more the behaviorally conditioned, which is pathway 1 in that model. And they're easier to treat. They like it quick and easy and keep moving on. They don't want to stick around. It's different. The gamblers today are different than they were 24 years ago when I started.
Gambling's different.
Gambling's different.
Yeah.
I liked it, whoever said yesterday in one of the presentations, you carry a gambling device around in your pocket all day. And I never really thought of it that way, because I don't even play games on my phone.
That was Jeremy.
Yeah.
And, what the other part of the question is, things that are less useful, definitely confrontation. Like you can't, like with anything, confrontation is not useful with them. The just stop, who does that? Like
Just say no.
Yeah, just say no, yeah,
Nancy
you just
Reagan.
can't do that, yeah.
We're telling them what to do or anything like that.
Or
That's-
education without that emotional processing.
Yeah, or they're, I always ask, can I tell you something about this? Would you like
Yes.
to learn something? Because
Yeah.
if you just give them information, they're like
Yeah.
blocking it out.
Yeah, you have to give, when you give it the education, you have to be able to, process that with them and discuss it with them.
And I think, I don't remember who, I believe it was Cassie that mentioned withdrawal from gambling. There are some physical and mental withdrawal signs, and I think that's important to educate them too. If they have just stopped gambling or they're at the point of, pre-contemplation, you need to prepare them for what's coming ahead, because there is it's not the same as coming off of OxyContin, and you're not going to be in there puking, but there is some withdrawal that happens, some of the depressive states, some isolating. For some, it could be some physical health things happen. Because they have sat in, with a device like this all the time, or they have sat on a plastic seat in the casino looking at, a screen or whatever, they're gonna have some mild physical health problems too. Another thing that I try to evaluate when I see them is their physical health. Because a lot of times the cardiovascular, especially for older people that have gambled, and I'm saying older is from 40 up maybe. It's the cardiovascular system could be in trouble.
That's a little rough.
She's called us old up
Yeah.
here.
I didn't want to be
She
in the
just
older.
called me
but
old.
thank
Put
you.
me in ancient.
Yeah.
How do you balance accountability and empathy?
For
Lead
me-
with, go ahead.
Oh, no, please.
Lead with empathy and then accountability. Be gentle but direct with it. Starting with things like "I wonder if" or the asking permission. Review previous gambling episodes. If they're thinking about gambling again, how did that work last time? Review where we can make their foundation of recovery stronger, because something is missing and we just got to find that brick that's missing.
I think for me, it's just a matter of the empathy. I'm always going to have that for every client, but the accountability is you came here because you wanted help for something. Normally something has happened, like you got caught gambling or you're bankrupt, but that right now is we know that you're in a very delicate situation. So I'm going to hold you accountable because you came here wanting help. So I'm going to ask, what are your goals? What do you want? Do you want to slow down? Do you want to quit? And then we'll respect that. And so I hold them to the accountability that they put out there.
Yes, definitely leading with the empathy, and then,
I sneak accountability in through the treatment plan.
exactly.
So
Tell us how you do that, Megan.
Yeah.
Sneaky. It's just, from day one, we collaborate on the development of their treatment. So every time they come see me, we just use a good 5 minutes just to be like, so, how is this going? And we're going through strengths, barriers, your objectives, interventions.
Where you at on this goal? Yeah,
Yeah,
I do the same thing.
So I don't even really have to do a lot of direct accountability because I'm doing what we always do in every session. We review your treatment plan. So, it's kind of my little way of gauging and allowing them to self-account.
Yeah, because they see it and I do the same thing, Megan. Because Doc, when you're talking, where are you at on this goal? Why are you not where you want to be at? So that brings that, them in on that accountability. I'm not here because,
Yeah.
Or even on the wording, like, what's standing in the way of
Yes,
us getting
exactly.
to that?
What
You don't-
barriers are there?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So what's been the most challenging emotionally with working with gambling clients, and how have you been able to maintain professional resilience? I'll start over on this side.
I've been working on professional resilience for years. The repetitiveness is very challenging. Saying the same thing over and over and over again in different ways to different people can be challenging, can be exhausting to some degree. So I'm always looking at ways to say the same thing but differently, impact differently. I just constantly remind myself that I'm planting seeds and I may not get to see the fruit of my labor.
Right.
And I'm a seed planter. That's my job, is to just slowly plant
Good way to
seeds.
put that, Yeah, and that's, yeah, the relapsing cycles are, sometimes really hard with us as therapists because we work so hard with them and, then, even with substance abuse, they relapse. Just being able, like, one of the resilience strategy is supervision. I mean, taking that back to supervision, setting those clinical boundaries too, and just reminding ourselves that, progress in gambling is recovery, it's often not non-linear, so, yeah.
I think the hardest thing, one of the most challenging things for me is the systemic barriers that are put in place for all of my clients. Especially housing,
Yes.
because that's one of the basic needs that we have as humans. And like I said earlier, all of mine are unhoused, so this does apply to gambling, I promise. But especially with everything that's going on with the new peer support bills and the new like recovery housing things, everything is changing, and a lot of my clients are the most impacted, just because the majority of mine are unhoused. They are on substances. They are in a 28-day residential program. So even in our recovery community, gambling is there. It's present because they do the 50-50 raffles. They do all the things that, like bingo and stuff at these recovery events. So it's the systemic barriers that put all of this in place to make gambling the most accessible thing.
Yes.
I got there.
I love that one. This is, that's probably one of the biggest problems when it comes to anything.
Anything.
As a counselor. Yeah. For me, emotionally challenging is, I'll be blunt. I'm a fixer.
Yes.
Born a fixer, want to fix. You have a problem and you tell me, I'm not going to sit there and be like, oh, it's not my instinct to say that's really hard. I'm sorry you're going through that. My immediate reaction is, oh, I know how to fix that. So I have to put that person in the closet. So that was emotionally challenging, that I can't fix everyone. And I also had a very wise woman once tell me that I cannot work harder than my client, because that will not work for anybody.
Yes.
But yeah, so just maintaining the professional resilience, like I said, supervision, taking time off whenever you
Self-care.
need it, self-care. It's
Yes,
not
self-care.
just spa and candles, like legitimately make sure you're eating right, getting sleep. Like these things impact us. And I mean, I was a hypocrite for a long time in my early days, because I was like, oh, you have to do this, you have to do this. And then I had a client look at me like, Cassie, are you doing all those things? No, I got 3 hours of sleep last night, and I've had 4 cappuccinos this morning, and I haven't seen the doctor in 2 years. So
Yeah.
you really have to take care of this, because you can't pour from an empty cup.
Yes.
Yeah.
Agreed.
I think for me to kind of avoid burnout, I don't have, other than a sprinkling of gamblers, I don't have a full caseload like you guys do. I'm 90% administrative, and so it's a mix of what I get to do, and I say that I don't have to see the gamblers. I get to see the gamblers. And so there's still, it's refreshing, and I look forward to it. If I had it, it would be different if I was in a setting like that's all I did.
Yeah.
And I don't typically do group. We've been a little bit short-staffed lately, and I've been helping fill in some groups, and that's why I did the gambling group the other day, and it's kind of fun to revisit my roots, so that's kind of where I am with things. So what advice would you give to a counselor, just to them just starting out in this?
I would say, don't rush the change process, build that relationship first, because without trust our clients, will hide, or, not, or disengage. So, gambling addiction thrives in, secrecy. So that connection is very important.
Yeah, mine says therapeutic rapport over anything.
We're on the same page.
If the client doesn't think you're authentic, it doesn't matter what's coming out your mouth.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. Meet them where they are every session, and sometimes every session they're at a different place. meet them where they are and really don't look back on that for me.
Yeah, and just like Kitty said yesterday, she said, so, like, if they need to come in and just like gossip, not gossip, but just spill everything session, that's all they need, meet them where they, or ball up in the corner and sleep, because that's what they need, she said she has that. But, like meeting them where they are is really important too,
And for me, it would be something that I learned the hard way. So I've asked clients before, like, do you have a gambling problem? And I thought that was a pretty simple question. Or do you gamble often? Do you sometimes gamble more or spend more money? And they're like, oh, I don't gamble. And these were clients I had that were in drug court programs usually. And I was like, okay, so no. And then I would hear them talk about bingo or scratch offs or the gray machines. And I was like, okay, do you scratch off tickets? Do you play bingo? Do you ever do this? Does your family do like the NCAA, like that? Do you do any of those things, 50-50 raffles? And they're like, well, yeah. And like, okay, that's gambling. And so actually just defining what gambling activity is to the client, because they might really not understand that they have an issue with it.
Yeah, I think we do have to do a lot of education. One of the questions I will say that doesn't elicit a yes/no answer is, tell me, just assume that they gamble. Tell me about the last time you gambled, or tell me about the last time you bet money or something important on an event or an outcome.
Yeah.
And you may get much more of an answer by asking that.
Yeah.
How about when you transition from doing general clinical work into gambling? What felt the most different about the population, about the gamblers?
They seemed very newbies, I guess. Whereas for substance use disorder, a lot of times we have what we would call, and I hate this, frequent flyers, people that will return and will have relapse issues. But the clients that I had coming in for gambling disorder when I first, they were almost always just the first time they'd ever seen a therapist for anything. So just them not understanding how therapy worked, and we're going to make a treatment plan, and the goals are yours. I don't tell you what to do. I don't give you advice. Things like that was just their unfamiliarity with the process, and that I thought was a little different.
Instead of frequent flyers, high utilizers.
Love that one. Well, and that's a double entendre too.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's not as,
Yeah, I
the
know.
connotation
I
doesn't
do
come
not. Yeah,
across
I
as
was gonna say,
bad.
I do not enjoy that at all. But that was what
Yeah, that's the first thing that comes to mind. Yeah, I get that.
I hate it.
So what about you guys? What first transitioned from, when you first transitioned from general clinical work, what did you think about it, and what felt so different than what you've been doing?
That's where the slowing down came into play for me. Like, I had to slow my sessions down because I could see it's the same experience anytime I try to talk about smoking cessation with a client.
Yeah.
They're, the whole time I'm talking to them, I can see them like they're like putting their hand on their wallet, kind of like, this lady is going to take everything away from me that I have. I've given up these things over here, but now that we're talking about gambling, she's going to, take that from me. So I think what we've talked about on this panel this morning is the therapeutic rapport, building trust, not making sure they know they can't let me down. I'm not your principal, your teacher, your mother, I'm not here to punish you or judge you or give you even guidelines unless you want, just really slowing it down. I can't go in as succinctly as I can with substance abuse clients.
I agree with you on that.
Yeah.
We really have to slow it down.
Yeah.
Because there's so much more, because, with substance use, there is the same thing, but, it's more like being able to, they don't see it most of the time. So just being able to, slow it down and put that therapeutic,
I'm still working on that.
so, yeah.
I'm still actively trying to find my way with that.
I am too. when it really
Yeah,
comes
it's
to it,
interesting. I can feel myself kind of get squirmish or tense up a little or pull back, or I might even change the subject. It gets a little uncomfortable sometimes when I see them start to exhibit signs of
Uncomfortable.
Yeah,
Uncomfortable.
pressure.
Yes. Mhm.
Like, and Dr. Clark said sometimes they only come once, so you have just such a short window of opportunity to build impact. So it's been interesting. It's been nice.
I'm gonna break for my questions that we had worked on before and ask opportunity for the audience in here to say anything. Ask any questions, make any comments, or do we have anything in chat? Okay,
I have a question.
sure.
RonSonLyn, you brought up an interesting situation at the beginning when you talked about the couple, the elderly couple, and the result of that was unfortunate with the divorce and then eventually some suicidality, I think. I'm just curious how you deal with, and this would probably be related more to outpatient treatment rather than residential, but you may have, obviously with families that where gambling is a problem, oftentimes it's husband, wife, and they both may enjoy going to the casino or lottery tickets or any form of gambling. They enjoy it together. One becomes an addicted gambler. The other is still plays the penny slots and loves the enjoyment of losing $10, and after the $10 is gone, I don't want any more. The same thing with alcohol. It's the same thing with alcohol. Let's say that one person is addicted to alcohol, the other person loves a glass of wine at 5 o'clock, and that's all. Now you're going into a treatment setting, and you're saying, I really have a problem. I'm identifying that I need to stop gambling, I need to stop drinking. My wife, my husband doesn't. They like those penny slots. They want to keep going. They want to still buy lottery tickets. They still drink a glass of wine. That's really difficult for me to be in a relationship with someone who recognizes that I have a problem and they don't have a problem, and they don't want to change their behavior. There could be a lot of triggers going on with here's the lottery tickets. My wife still wants to go to the casino. I can't go to the casino. I need to stop this. But the other person doesn't see the need for that. I'm just curious as to how you deal with it.
I mean, the first thing that popped into my head was, working on those coping skills, being able to, when the wife is drinking that glass of wine, make sure you're not around because that's going to trigger you, so that's the first thing that popped into my mind when you were talking.
This is such a common.
It
this
is.
a
It really is very common.
A lot of times
issue.
the person said, I don't have the problem, you do.
Yeah.
This is the one time that I enjoy bringing a partner into the session, and I
Yes,
invite
yes.
them to join. I'm not a couples therapist. I don't do a lot of couple stuff, but in support of my clients, why don't you bring your spouse and we'll talk about, what it is that we're looking for, wanting, not wanting, needing to change. Let's talk about change. Let's talk about what that looks like for you. That's the one time I invite the partner in, but man, that's a pickle.
It is.
Has to be handled gingerly, for sure.
And I would ask the partner who doesn't have the problem with it, and how important is it to you for the health and the
Yeah.
of your relationship, of your partner?
Exactly.
Like, you compromise. You have to find, maybe you only have a glass of wine on once a month when you have girls' night out or something. There's got to be a
There's
compromise if
compromise,
it's a
yes.
good
Yeah.
relationship that you would want to make for that person. I would hope.
I think one of the things that I try to do is replace, in the harms caused by gambling, they lose sight of everything but gambling. And you need to find something for the gambler to do with his or her time. And what else could you do that you would enjoy doing? And maybe make that a joint activity. One of my little old ladies that got into a lot of financial trouble, she always wanted to garden. And was that something he would want to do? And he was not supportive of anything. And I had to work with her to be okay within herself that she could do things by herself. I probably would say to the one that wants the glass of wine at night, well, let's just try it a month and see what it's like. 'Cause obviously it's not something you have to do, but let's try it a month and see how things go at home. how it feels, what the atmosphere is like in the house.
Yeah.
If you don't do that for a month, and let's just, you're not doing anything wrong. This is certainly, you're not in a troubled situation that buying a lottery ticket or two is not a problem. Let's just try going a month without doing anything and see how that works.
And there's definitely something to be explored there too, because, in a marriage, we hope that we're going to be supportive of each other. And if you are unwilling to tone down or change or modify or eliminate an issue in the relationship, why? Is it possible that maybe that wine drinker that drinks every night a glass of wine, maybe they're just losing $5 a week, but it's still a problem? So I would argue, almost challenge that maybe, just maybe, we might have some dependency going on there. It's tricky though, because the partner's not my client. So, helping them see that can be a little challenging.
I think when you've got a family where there's addiction in the family, that identified patient who is the addict takes hostages in the family. So everybody living under that same roof becomes sick.
Yeah.
And whether they know
Very
it or
good.
not,
Yeah.
because of living in all that dysfunction. And
Yes.
I would recommend that she is the one that's drinking the last one, go see somebody, because she is probably full of anger.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if she doesn't want to go see somebody, maybe go to Gam-Anon, and I know there's not a lot of those meetings around, and I don't even know if there's one in Kentucky, but you can certainly access some online. Gam-Anon is like Al-Anon, for the family member of, and makes a lot of good sense to me to have that extra support that doesn't cost them anything. It's a good safe space to deal with that anger that they have. Because whether they want to admit it or not, if it's my husband doing that and I've lived with it for 5, 10, 15 years because it is so secretive, and then they're knocking on my door because we haven't paid the second mortgage on the house because it's been gambled away, then I'm gonna have some anger, and I need to deal with somebody over my anger. That's a good question, and it's not an easy answer.
Yeah.
It
Yeah,
really
and-
isn't an easy fix.
Focusing on the client, along with that, it's their responsibility to identify their triggers and to avoid or to
Correct.
challenge or whatever. So encouraging them to set real boundaries of if you continue to do this, I will have to do this, instead of putting the responsibility back on the client and not their partner.
Right. Being an individual in the relationship,
Yep.
right? Taking full accountability for what I do in the
boundaries for
relationship.
themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, the last couple that I had, quite unfortunately, where they loved it for years. They had always gone to the casino together, and it was fun. And then he decided that she had a problem, and he didn't. And they ended up divorced, and she ended up very unstable afterwards because she didn't understand. We did this together. It was fun. We always had a good time. And so she looked at it as a bonding experience. And then he turned it around on her and said, no, I don't, unless I can control how much money I give you and da-da-da-da-da. So it was a control issue then, and understandably so, finances are finances. But she was really confused where it's changed, I guess, for him. Where it was no longer fun anymore.
I do think, with couples, and I'm paraphrasing this, but in the big book, there's a story about a guy who takes his wife to the psych unit, to the psych ward, and he's surprised when they keep him and she goes home. In a couple, sometimes,
Yeah.
you really do. You use your sickness against each other, or it gets I think I'm the one with the problem, but it turns out you also have a problem, and then now we're just arguing over problems.
And I think I would, again, if I'm dealing with the one glass of wine at night person, I would come back and quote out of the big book for that. How important is it really? How important is it to my emotional sobriety?
Yeah.
And that can be over a variety of things, doesn't have to be alcohol. But how important is it for me to buy that one lottery ticket or, go play bingo once a week with my girlfriends compared to the emotional stability that could happen in my house? Let me try, like I said, try it a month. You've only lost a month. What difference is that gonna be?
Yeah, and then ask, like, what are you getting from that one glass of wine that you can't get by doing something else? I mean, how,
Question?
So we talked about how we all talked about how we make changes in the client's family. What are some changes, if any, that you have made or would like to make with your treatment team when you started identifying your gambling clients?
Can you repeat that question one more time?
Let me say it so everybody can hear
Okay.
it. Okay, if that's all right. We talked about changes that we have to work with the family. What changes have we had to work with our treatment teams? Okay. My program where I work, and I've got a coworker back here, and he may comment on this. They weren't dealing, and we're a brand new facility. We have been in existence for less than 2 years, and we're busting at the seams, which is a good and bad thing. It's good that we're there and we can do it, and I think we're doing it really, really well. Our approach is a little different. It's a bad thing in the fact that the need is so great. I came in as the gambling lady that, Owensboro's not that big. They knew that I did gambling counseling when I came in. So it was just assumed that I would. So it was accepted pretty well in my facility because that's what she does when she's here. And to me, it's kind of like, that's my fun time when I get to do that. If they identify, if one of the counselors there identifies somebody they think has a gambling problem, they bring them to me. And that is beginning to happen more often than not. I'm invited to come in their groups and do my little PowerPoint that I said I would email everybody. It's pretty well accepted where I am. I've been in other places that, we gotta treat their substance abuse. We gotta keep them from doing meth, and that gambling's not that bad. And I think when those people come at me, that gambling's not that bad, that I wonder what they're doing in their off time. So I've got it pretty good where I am. I realize everybody doesn't. What's it been like? And I know you're private practice, but.
No, but whenever with drug court, we had to, drug court is obviously a substance use disorder, and so, of course, Dr. Clark kind of helped with that, with her reputation in Owensboro, but we had to start adding okay, so substance, and then I would have clients that would start to gamble, and then that would lead them to going back to using their drug of choice. And it's a slippery slope, and so I had an interdisciplinary team. It was like the judge and other people. I was the only therapist on the team though, but they were very kind of like, this is drug court. Like, why are you talking about gambling? Like, we all do that. And then I had Dr. Clark come in and give a presentation for all of my drug court participants, and the judge was the one who made them come in, thankfully, because she can do that. And she did the 9 questions and had all of my clients text me their numbers that they had come up with, and we had, oh gosh, how many did we have over?
It was a lot.
I think it was 9.
It was
9. That was like the highest score. It was, and they didn't even know. Like afterwards, I had one gentleman come to me. He goes, I didn't know that gambling was a problem, and I was like, we'll talk on Monday.
You have to educate your treatment team.
Yes, I had to educate them a lot.
do that.
They were kind of
And you have to also educate them. I'll let you guys talk, I promise.
You're fine.
You have to educate them that it's no different than other things. Many in new recovery will switch to a different thing that they will also become addicted to, or are already addicted to something. You've got eating disorders, you've got sexual addictions, you've got shopping addictions. I used to talk to my girls in drug court, because I did drug court before I hired Cassie, and I would tell them, you're 4-6 months from using meth. Do you go to Walmart at night and just buy stuff? Just any kind of stuff? Yeah. Well, this is a shopping addiction. that often develops after meth use. So you have to educate them all around. The likelihood of them staying drug-free, I was gonna say clean and sober, I'm trying to make it much more user language here. The likelihood of them staying drug-free is not going to be long-term if they're still engaging in other, we deal with their mental health. So it's no different than, you've got depression along with your alcoholism, we have to treat both.
Mm-hmm.
That's you guys.
Yeah, so at North Key, our changes, like, we just got our grant for gambling, so we've had to make a lot of changes, like,
And training.
and yeah, we're doing trainings, like, me, Kelly, Picatta's our other therapist that's getting certified in gambling, so in our groups and stuff, we're rolling it out in our groups, our IOP, all of that. That way, we know that the need in our facility, but our advertising team with our grant, they have done wonderful. We've got now Spanish, English, every kind of advertisements on our page. They've got them out in social media now, that we are doing gambling, like we are focusing on gambling now at our facility, but also me and Megan are doing a training facility-wide on gambling, just to make all of our clinicians aware, so when they're doing assessments, when they're in their therapy sessions, that they're aware of what to look for. I think awareness is just the number one key there, is just making everybody in the facility aware, like, what to look for, and, that we are there to help and let our clients know, so, yeah.
Within Schwartz, my team understands. We've been doing, like I said, I created a group for our curriculum, and we've been doing that since summer of 2024. Yeah. So they understand, because it's a, process addiction, behavior addiction, the old addictive personality term that people use. So my team is getting it, and New Vista is becoming more open to it too. I'm doing the training in the summer, so that'll be awesome. Yeah.
One of the things that I want to emphasize about this, and tell you, I'm so grateful that you guys are here, and I keep looking towards this side of the room because I see some that are in supervision, some that I hope will join us in supervision. We have placed a huge emphasis, it's part of our strategic planning at the Kentucky Council, to develop our workforce in Kentucky as far as certified gambling counselors are concerned. They mentioned training in Rough River, which we had last October, and many of the people you see here today, and I know there's several online, went through that training in Rough River. That training is now accessible to you guys free of charge online by accessing our website. It is 30 hours. Each of the modules is broken into an hour and a half a piece, so you don't have to sit there 30 hours at a time. Most of us can carve out an hour and a half here and there. It'll take a short 5-question test, and that's just kind of so that we know you've really paid attention to the material. And at the end of that, you have received your 30 hours. Once you do the 30 hours, then you also need to, and this is with at least a bachelor's degree, you need to sign up for your supervision and begin your 100 hours of experience. Then you will, up until now, nothing's cost you anything. Supervision does cost, but it's minimal. Because you only have to have, I don't agree with this, but this is what we're saying, you have to have 6 hours. 4 hours. The way I do it is 45 minutes, so I do 6 sessions that you have. So that's over the course of, 2 or 3 months. They started in November with me, and, most of them are at the point they're done. Then you'll take the test, the exam. Kentucky Council will reimburse you the cost of the exam once you pass the exam. So then you'll pay for your certification fees. All you're out is the supervision time and your certification fees. So it's very cost effective for you. It's estimated, and I'm gonna go on some of the lower end of the numbers. It's estimated out of the entire population of Kentucky, we have at least 60,000 addicted gamblers, not just at risk, which would probably bump us up to another 100,000, but 60,000 really truly have a problem and need somebody to help them. Until this month, we had 4 counselors across the state. Cassie and I are in Western Kentucky. We had 1 in Lexington and 1 in Franklin. For the longest time, before I had Cassie go through supervision, I had people from Paducah and west of Paducah driving to, because we weren't really doing telehealth, driving to Owensboro, which is almost 3 hours away. I've had people from Louisville contact me. Right now I'm treating people in Louisville and Lexington. 4 counselors for the entire state. That's embarrassing. It is embarrassing. Now, after the training that we did in Rough River, as of today, we have 8. I'm proud to say we've doubled. 8's embarrassing too, but I'm so proud of that number. I have at least 5 that are testing, like Regina and Megan soon. That'll put us at 13, and I have a couple more, like Shannon in the back, who will be taking hers. Hers isn't scheduled, she's got a little more to do, but she'll be taking hers soon, and a few more that will be taking it soon. By the end of this year, I should easily have, it's not me, Kentucky should easily have 15 or 16. We need 30 at least. We need 30. We need 2 in each catchment area across the state. Each community mental health center area needs 2. And when I look at who all signed in today, there's some places, there's some catchment areas that didn't send anybody. Now, they could be online. I didn't see that list, and I feel like we've got some from pretty well covered when we talk about the online people. But please, if you are sparked at all in the interest of this, please, please, at least listen to the 30-hour training. We need you. I'm not far from retiring again. Retired twice. I'm not far from
this time.
Yeah. I'm not far from going from, doing this all the time. So I need people to step up and help.
Lots of feel there, though. Yeah.
Those are long answers to your question, but good question.
I do think, though, Dr. Clark, in this industry in general, in my experience, we have not done a great job with focusing on cross addiction, the phenomenon of it. For general therapists, or even sometimes me, that specializes in addiction and recovery, if you tell me that your opioid use addiction has been in remission for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, we will take that in as positive information. That's great. That's wonderful. I should be looking, well, where did those addictive behaviors go, or what did you do to address them? Because we have just been that they've stopped opioid use, illicit use. That's great. We're good.
Put it at? Yes.
Right. So I feel like our investigative skills, or at least my awareness of it has been subpar in my early career.
Yeah, and being in substance use, it's like I'm always pointing out, oh, I've been clean for, this amount of time, but, what are you doing? How are you doing this? Like, let's talk about the negatives in this too. Like, I'm always there's always positives, but we have to like explore those negatives too, because
Yeah.
they're putting that energy somewhere.
What are you doing?
Yes.
Just, what are we
How are you
doing to
filling
stay
that
that?
need
Yeah.
you used to feel with
Uh-huh.
opioids?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah,
It's not
so,
what you stop doing, sometimes it's what you start.
I've had them go to gambling too, like from substance use.
Well, I got a question.
Sure.
Why just four?
Mike is coming with the microphone.
He said, "Well, I just for."
Thank you, sir. Why just four? You all may have answered this, I'm sorry, you're just coming in, but why just four? Why just 8 that you're getting to? What is the barriers for this?
I think that's a kind of complex answer, and I look back over the years, we had more, I got my initial training in 1998. We had 60 people attend that training. That was the 30 hours. I went in there at that point, and having done substance abuse for a very long time before that, and I met the people doing the training, including Mike Stone, our former director, and I said, these are my people, I like them. I liked the staff that was providing things. And it made sense to me, and I was working with a lot of domestic violence at the place at that time, and I bought into the whole domestic violence happens when somebody else is controlling your money, and I felt like I need to get some words out about this not being a good thing. And at that point, GA was doing a lot of pressure relief meetings. And if you're not sure what that is, I'll be glad to explain that to you. We initially got some more trained at that point, and I think we got up to somewhere around 13 or 15. I'm looking at Dr. Barrett if he remembers much differently than me. But the workforce aged out. That was one thing that we've had a lot of people retire. The second thing is it traditionally has been difficult to get insurance to pay for gambling counseling. It is a certification rather than a licensure. I am the ICGC, which Regina and Megan will be, because they're gonna pass, International Certified Gambling Counselor. So I could go anywhere in the United States, in the world, and it'd be accepted. But it's a certification and not a licensure. And insurance likes that L. And so I tag on, I'm a licensed clinical alcohol and drug counselor. So I tag that on, and sometimes they'll like it and sometimes they won't. I've had many times to have to write an insurance company and say, well, this is who I am, this is my experience, this is how many I've treated, this is da-da-da-da-da-da, and then they'll come back and say yes or no. So I think there's some factors about that. I also think it's such, I said 60,000, but that's a drop in the bucket in Kentucky. Really, a few drops in the bucket. For 90%, 95% of the people that gamble, they can do it for fun and entertainment. I could go buy a lottery ticket when the numbers get high, and probably not going to win, but it's fun to think, we sit around dinner and dream about what we're going to buy with all of our winnings. So it's that. It's not a pretty disease, just like substance abuse. And I talk to people about substance abuse and gambling counseling is not a casserole disease. If I go to the hospital tonight because I have a heart issue and maybe they do an open heart surgery, I hope not, but maybe they'll do that and I go home in 3 or 4 days, my friends from my church are going to all bring me a casserole. If I go to Schwartz Center where Hanna is and do 28 days and go home, nobody's going to bring me a casserole. It's not pretty. I don't know what to do with it. I know how to be around you if you've had heart surgery, but I don't know about that substance use.
Yeah.
So it's a combination of factors. I look at states that, because I've served on the International Certification Board, I have served as the NCPG rep from Kentucky, and I look at other states that have workforces
50, 60, 100 counselors that are certified and say, why can't we? Why can't we? Sports betting in 2024 opened up a funding stream to us to be able to do things like this.
No, you're fine.
And you're with the lottery. You all have been such good friends of ours throughout forever. We couldn't have done so many things that we've done without, for our friends from the gaming industry. And we appreciate you. We work together. You don't want somebody standing in a convenience store scratching away. And I was in a store several years ago, and it was in Indiana, so it wasn't yours. And the lady had on a nursing uniform, and I being real judgmental, and I don't mean to be this, but she didn't have like badges that said nurse. She was probably an aide on a low income, and it was about 3:30 on a Friday afternoon. She just stood there and scratched until she had no money left to buy any more cards. And I was in line behind her buying a Diet Coke and thinking, can't they just move her aside? She was in her own little world, wasting every bit of her check. And you don't want that. And I don't want that. But that's such a small amount of people. And legislatures don't look to that small amount of people for votes.
No.
And I think that the stigma around substance use disorder got carried over to gambling, and then and it wasn't considered a problem. Like, I feel like we haven't had a lot of education, like in general, about non-substance addictions, and I think that that's, plus, I mean, gambling's fun and it's legal, so I think that is a lot of the reasons why there were so few of us, because it wasn't taken as seriously as it needed to be.
I also think that gambling is lumped into that alcohol thing. It, like you said, it's fun, it's culturally acceptable, it's socially acceptable, it's all of those things.
Yeah, sometimes it's a bonding experience for people, yeah.
I remember, growing up, they played cards at Christmas and Thanksgiving and all of that, and so it's one of those socially acceptable things that you see out the window. It's really kind of funny because my residential program is in a shopping center area, and there's a bar directly across from it and a liquor store. So, like, they can see out the window each day, the bar and the liquor store. So it's kind of like that, because like we said earlier up here, there's a gambling conference here now.
Yeah.
Anybody else? I know when we were working on preparing for the panel discussion, one of the things that Cassie in particular was interested in was bringing up some information about neurodivergence amongst the gambling population. So I'm going to move over to some of those questions, guys. So what patterns have you observed between gambling harm and neurodivergent traits such as ADHD, autism, and impulsivity related differences?
Yeah. So there's several patterns, but like because I thought about this for a long time, but what the patterns all have is the same theme, is that neurodivergent clients aren't gambling for the same reasons that a neurotypical person is. And realizing that really opens up your ability to help them, because otherwise they're going to be sitting in front of you and they're going to be masking. And by masking, I mean it's going to be someone who is neurodivergent like I am, and instead of stimming, or sometimes they'll have tics, things like that, instead of they'll act normal. They'll make expressions on their face when they normally have a blank face, and they'll put something in their voice. So they're not them. So you can't help them when they're masking. Neurodivergent people use gambling to regulate their nervous system. And I know that sounds crazy because it's a very unregulated thing. It's like, oh wow, we're gonna go gamble. That's not, but that is one of the reasons why they use it. So sensory stimulation is a big driver. Then for hyperfocus, if anybody's familiar with ADHD, that's also a thing that a lot of other people who are neurodivergent struggle with. So once you start, you don't want to stop, and maybe you can't. And then the dopamine, like there's no dopamine in a neurodivergent person's brain nearly like there should be. So, I mean, we're always just chasing that. And I think a lot of times the world that we live in is not exactly built for a neurodivergent person at all. Anybody that was here yesterday knows that I had on my sunglasses inside because these lights give me migraines. I wear earplugs because of the sensory noises. I can hear the electricity in the walls. I can hear the lights above us. All those things that are overwhelming, but then sometimes you sensory seek, and that's what I mean when we go where it's loud and things like that. So it's very different depending on the person, because if you've met one autistic person, you've met one autistic person. But I think that knowing that they have different issues as to why, but then also, like everyone has said, slowing down the treatment, because processing speeds for people who are neurodivergent might be slower. Like I might be in an argument with Dr. Clark, and then 2 days later I'm like, oh, I'm really upset about that. It didn't hit me maybe at the time, but after I process it, then I'm, wow, okay. So always slow it down, and never assume. It gets really annoying when someone's maybe selectively mute or nonverbal, and that doesn't mean that they're not a human. Like, we have ACC devices. Like, we have ways we can communicate. Like, some of the most brilliant people in the world don't verbalize or vocalize their thoughts. So just always assume that they're able, and because the stigmatism of that is really difficult. So you're already at an intersectionality of being neurodivergent, and then on the outskirts of the gambling. Mm-hmm. So where do you fit in? And it's really difficult to help a person. When I got diagnosed, I noticed that within 3 months, for some reason, 6 new clients that came to me, all of them were autistic. They had no idea. I didn't tell them I had been diagnosed, but they just seemed like moth to a flame. And it was very encouraging, I guess, but also kind of frustrating in a way, because it was different. So I did have to learn like how we can move through, because CBT does not work really well usually with anyone neurodivergent. It feels more like gaslighting. So just having to use more motivational interviewing with them and slowing it down, things like that. But I just don't think there's enough understanding of ADHD and autism and that impulse. Like, if you don't have it, it's hard to learn whenever your brain doesn't allow you to do it. You can't learn something you're not able to do.
And Cassie, you're spot on too, because it would be hard to convince some people, even clinicians, that someone goes and sits in front of a slot machine that has tons of bells and whistles and moving parts, and it's the calmest they've been all day.
Yeah.
It's the quietest, most calm. It's almost sedating. It has sedating qualities to it.
Yeah.
Everything fades to black.
Yeah.
There's nothing going on. It's like going fishing.
They're in a bubble. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it would be hard to some people, especially if they've never had any experience, or if a therapist likes slot machines, right? They're not gonna, what do you mean that, you go there and sit for 6 hours? It's quite possibly the only time of the day that their brain actually didn't have alarms going off.
Yeah.
You
yeah.
know?
Yeah, it said that autistic people absorb 42% more information on average every day, like than the neurotypical person. So that when they can hyper focus on something that's giving them dopamine, then yeah, why wouldn't you want to feel better and do
Right.
that? It makes sense. It really does. But yeah, sometimes the sensory seeking can be just as good as the sensory avoidance.
Regina, Hanna, do you have anything to add?
I just also think of, this is for me, but blind boxes, like, is gambling too, but it's also like you get a little trinket, that's soft, or mine are soft, but it's like one of those little surprises too, that's fun.
Fun, yeah. But it's not something that I have to wager on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You
It's-
do wager on it though, because what if you get
Yeah.
the big one
Yeah.
and stuff?
Can-
It's different.
Can I make my big gripe about self-exclusion that I have?
Sure.
That I wanted to take to the board. So I have had several clients, I don't know if anybody's ever done this self-exclusion or is familiar with it, has had a client that had to do the self-exclusion for in-person gambling in Kentucky or not, but it's probably easier to bleed a turnip. Sorry, bad metaphor there. You have to go to a specific place and they will try to talk you out of that. You will walk all the way through the casino, then you have to do all this paperwork in this little room where you feel kind of like you're being interrogated. You can't have anyone with you for support, and then you have to fill out this paperwork. And I had an attorney client who I showed the paperwork to, and he said, I'm an attorney, I know legal speak, and this doesn't make any sense to me. And he said, but he was able to do it. You can self-exclude for 1 year, 5 years, or life, I think. They're always going to try to talk you into 1 year or 5 year. And I just don't think that, I can't go as a therapist with a client who wants to self-exclude. Because if I go onto the casino floor after I've self-excluded, I'm trespassing. You will call the cops and I can go to jail. That's how that is. But to be able to self-exclude on your own, it's like asking an alcoholic to go into the store, buy a bottle of alcohol, and then just pour it all out and not drink any of it. It's a very difficult thing to do. They need that support. And I can't go with them. It would be unethical for me to do that. But then I can't ask somebody who maybe is their sponsor to do it, because then that's putting them in a very bad position too, because maybe the sponsor's already self-excluded from there. But I would really like us to have an easier way to self-exclude, because I've had many clients want to self-exclude and are unable to do so because of the paperwork being so difficult and because of how inaccessible they make it and because they can't take anybody for support. And we don't recover alone. So that's my main gripe is the self-exclusion. I think that maybe they should allow some of us that are trained with the ICGC to be able to go over that paperwork with them, to fill that out, and then send that to the board, to Frankfurt or to whoever, Keeneland, whatever. That would be my...
I do feel like some gambling outlets you can self-exclude online.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, but you can also go. They'll do 1 year or 5 year, and then they will email you. They will email you the week before your excluded time is going to be up and say, "Hey, we have 300 new. Here's some free cash for you to come back and play with us." Because I've had a client who said he did it for 1 year and his time was up. So
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and you can also unexclude when it's online. The digital world is.
Oh, okay. So you can reverse it.
Yes.
Yeah, in a heartbeat. Yeah, but not in person. But for the digital stuff, yeah, very much so.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So, how do you manage countertransference when clients repeatedly relapse or experience severe financial consequences?
It's a great one.
Just like with substance use, we are not the person that did this. It doesn't matter. We just have to remind ourselves that we can't help everybody, and that returning to use or returning to gambling can be a part of a person's story, and again, that something was missing from their foundation of recovery. And they're still alive and came back.
I feel like for me, on working with gamblers, more than substance abuse, the clients, I have to do and teach harm reduction skills. And from an old abstinence girl, sometimes that's hard to do, to teach harm reduction. But I can maybe hook my gamblers a little bit better if I don't push abstinence, and I don't like that at all. But sometimes, if you meet them where they are, sometimes they're not willing to budge a lot in the beginning. By harm reduction, I talk about limiting the amount of money that you spend per week or per day,
limiting the amount of hours that you're at the venue, limiting the days you're at the venue, leaving debit cards, credit cards, stuff at home, and only take a certain amount of money with you that you can afford to lose. Sometimes you have to start with that. And that's not my favorite thing to have to do.
I'm big, like, CBC's now changed it to risk reduction. After we finally got the harm reduction, now they've changed it to risk reduction. I'm presenting at the Overdose Prevention Summit. Yeah, they changed it from the harm reduction summit to the risk reduction summit. The overdose prevention summit, and now we are not allowed to use harm reduction word at all in our presentations and stuff. But I'm big on, the harm reduction, and I try to, really push that more with them because it seems like it works a lot better. So yeah, I like abstinence too, but like if abstinence don't always work, so harm reduction, risk reduction is the big thing for me.
I like whatever keeps them alive.
Yeah. There you go.
As far as countertransference, it's never been about me and it'll never be about me.
Exactly.
And I've managed that. That's how I don't think I deal with a lot of countertransference. Occasionally I will go to my own personal therapist and talk about things that come up in session that impacts me with the client. I hear something, feel something, they say something, or occasionally, if I have a client that fits the exact demographic of a family member, it'll kind of be a little triggering. But with managing countertransference, I'm just conduit to a solution. It's never been about me. It'll never be about me. They'll live their life just fine without me. And so I don't ever really, thank God my effectiveness isn't based on sobriety and abstinence, right? I can't really gauge effectiveness on my clients' outcomes.
Right.
So I do ask for feedback from my clients though, about what is it about our sessions that you enjoy or that you wish were different.
Gabriel Monte said something similar to what you said. Like if my competency was measured by the amount of clients that stayed alive, I would be very bad.
Yeah. It's a real thing. I think it may be early in my career countertransference was an issue, but
Yeah, but now it doesn't seem like.
it's one of the beauties of this career is
And
that
growing in the career.
yeah,
yes.
I go to work and it has nothing to do with me.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
All about the
wonderful.
clients. Yeah.
If you guys could say anything to the ones that are contemplating the certification process, what would you say to them about your journey and the good, the bad, the ugly?
Me personally, I would say that since this lady right here is sitting next to me and you're in this room, you should take advantage
Exactly,
of that.
yeah.
Because if you want an expert on, Dr. Clark is it.
Wonderful.
And we need, and unless you're gonna be like Dr. Clark and get the doctor in front of your name, get as many letters after your name as you possibly can is kind of how we do it in the therapy world. And that's a little bit of a joke, but it feels true sometimes.
It does really, yeah.
Yeah. Just because it helps you understand a wider range of people and helps a wider range of people. You're not gonna lose anything from it.
I like that.
Yeah, I don't really feel like there's been a lot of ugly, just learning the, skills and how to, what works for you, what you're good at, and, just being able to, but like I really enjoyed, like the training is wonderful, like it's, the Dr. Clark is wonderful, like you can bring anything, email her anytime she will email you, right? Like it's like she's there like for us, so like that's the good, like that's really, having her,
Yeah, the support.
yeah, that support from her is like wonderful.
Gambling came in though and showed me how much I don't know.
Right.
Gambling showed me exactly how much I don't know about the world of addiction. I know about substance abuse recovery. So I think like as if you want to be a well-rounded therapist or, you know, have depth in addiction, I think it's our responsibility to understand cross addiction.
Exactly.
And so credentials are nice, yes, they help. But I mean, we should be having a shoplifting conference. We should be having, you know,
Yeah.
porn and sex addiction conference. We should be like cross addiction. Like, I cannot be so naive as to think, and also it is risky to think that because my client is sober from opiates for 2 years that they're doing okay. That's a fallacy, and it's almost clinically irresponsible on my part to not be, yeah.
Don't know about,
But the pandemic, the epidemic of heroin and the lethality of it, I understand why substance abuse became so prevalent. I understand it, love it, embrace it 100%.
and now gambling, because there's so, like, gambling's always been there. Like, it's been there for
Yeah.
hundreds and hundreds of years.
Stone
but,
Age.
Yeah, and I think-
So it's like, it's just like with social media and everything now, it's just more out, like, it's out there more, like everybody is doing it, and it's become,
Yeah.
the phones
It's
are
been a
down
great
on the buses.
opportunity, Dr. Clark, and I want to thank you just in case you accidentally retire on me at any time soon.
She's
I'm
not
sure
good at
she
doing
can still
that.
answer quick emails.
I don't think she would. Maybe she
Yeah.
wouldn't.
The other thing, to go back to the question about why there were so few of us for so long, because we have thoroughbreds. I mean, so that's such a part of our heritage in Kentucky that, like, you can't, shut down the horse farms and everything. So I think that might have been a reason why we were so few in numbers for so long.
I have one last question, unless there's some more questions from the chat or the audience in here.
I don't have a question, Dr. Clark, but I do have a comment about being a counselor. I think, with my background being in manufacturing and operations a lot, historically, we always try to get to the root cause when there's a problem. How could this part get out the door bad? So, listening to some of the stories and the comments, to me, it still comes back to a simple thing that we have to do, and that's get to the root cause. So, I have tinnitus, so I hear these sounds, particularly at night when it's quiet and I'm laying down, and I hear the electricity. I think it's electricity, and I tell people all the time, it sounds like being under power lines. I hear these wires, I hear this electricity sound. But I killed the power to my whole house. So I'm like, I still hear it. Sometimes, I'm dating myself, but sometimes it sounds like dial-up computer. That crazy sound. So when I go to a restaurant and they have a band, a live band, and the speakers are like right here by the chairs right here, the speakers, and I'm not gonna sit right here by the speakers, but everybody is kind of congregating in one spot. So I kind of move off to the side to get away from the speakers because it's too loud for me. And people are like, oh, he's just antisocial. He doesn't want, he say he's got a problem. Dr. Mark's got an issue. Like, no, don't assume. I don't have an issue. I'm loving the place. I'm enjoying it. Can I enjoy it over there? Absolutely, I can enjoy it over there. Just like I can do it right here, but I may not be as comfortable being right here. So when a husband or a wife is going through a difference, for example, with, well, I don't have an issue with gambling. Okay, now you're not being what? Compassionate.
Exactly.
There is a root cause. It's a bigger issue than a disagreement between who can gamble, who can't, or who's having a small glass of wine and can't. My son, for example, found out he had a peanut allergy. Babysitter gave a peanut butter cracker when he was less than 2 years old, and he blew up like a balloon, and he almost died. So, guess what? No peanut butter in the house. Dr. Marks loves peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Now he can't even smell it, so I have to go outside. I have to do something
Compromise.
different.
Yeah.
That's a good.
Right.
That's a good.
Yes.
I have to. You know, so now I'm walking around with EpiPens in my car and stuff, cause you know, you can't, you know, just in case a kid gives them peanut butter cookie or something. Bottom line is, we have to get to the root cause.
Yes.
Yes.
You can't just think, oh, well, this person has this problem, and that's not the only problem. And usually there's an underlying.
And sometimes it's hard to get them to sit still long enough to peel, and you guys know this, to peel away those layers to get to the core of the onion, and because it gets painful, and
Yeah.
And
the tendency for people that live with addiction is to avoid pain.
Yeah.
I worked at a methadone clinic when I first started in the addiction field, and we were only supposed to talk about addiction. We were not supposed to go into the trauma, like whatever the root cause of the reason why they were using. That's what inspired me to get my master's degree in mental health therapy and become a therapist, is because, you know, if it's not, there's something there, that's the reason why they're using. And doing the biopsychosocials, I know what it was, but I couldn't go into that therapy session and talk about, you know, their trauma, because that's not part of my, you know, my CADC. My, you know, I was addiction only. So, like, that's, you know, getting to the root of the problem is number one. Yes, getting to the root of that trauma, whatever it was. You know, that's,
With mine, it's almost always trauma.
yes.
So I got trained in accelerated resolution therapy.
Right.
So I don't know, it's based off of EMDR, but so yeah, getting to I had that in my notes for one of the answers. Getting to the root of the why
Yeah. Wow.
is one of the biggest things, because there's something you're avoiding, there's something.
There's something you're holding in. Yeah.
I want to say thank you, ladies. It's been a pleasure being your supervisor for a while. And it's so fun to watch if you've been a teacher at all, you know, you love to see your students succeed and step up. And that's what I've been able to experience today, is seeing my students step up and excel. So this is a small token for being on our panel from the Kentucky Council. It is break time, and I think after this I'm looking at Cindy to make sure I'm right. We'll all reconvene in here, and there'll be another link sent out to the online people in 15 minutes. All right, thank you for your attention.
Good job, guys.
She saw one of the questions was specifically about motivation interviewing isn't working for you, and I hope that you're. Maybe.
Or what mistakes people make.
Yeah, Kelly told me next time I was going to do the training and motivational interview, and I was like, sure, may have to do, like, she's doing that training soon, I think it is, yeah.
You could have,
So,
from the seat, because you gotta keep the leg.
do you want us to take our name tags?
And they request you, like, say what your questions, and I was like,
We read your mind.
Yeah.
you almost like touched on how you was involved in the treatment team or interdisciplinary, and I was like, you're gonna get it.
It might have been one of the questions.
That's good, I like that. I like that.
Maybe that's what
Our panel, take your name tags.
Thank you. Do we leave our name tags or take them?
Industry.
Do whatever.
It's our name.
actually in a couple of weeks.
I think, yes,
This.
that's next Friday.
Yeah, it's Friday.
Friday morning.
Friday morning, yes.
Industry
Yes.
approach to responsible gambling. Didn't know what we thought about that. Yeah, I know that. I do know that. Here's the thing. What do you do stuff like that and beg and plead or kick and knee to get? Seriously, I have clients that have gone back to gambling because they get some I can't write to the governor, and you guys can't go with the board.
It would be the owners of the like Harris.
Thank you for reminding me, that's
Oh, you something from England or first. there's 3 different residents. You can for all of them. It's good for all of them, but like still, it's just so hard to get it going. I'll get out of your way. Oh yeah, it's like alcohol and drugs and addictions is one of my special interests, and humans are my most special interest. So I can talk for days and days and days on that, which was helpful.
I got to keep that because I never know. So,
Guess I'll leave him here.
Yeah, can we just get maybe a higher?
The girl will do that.
Yeah,
He said I'll just sit in this chair.
we'll just get,
He wants the desk because he's gonna have his computer.
okay, yeah. All right.
Enjoyed your session yesterday.
Nice to meet you. And then I went to a small homeless shelter. There for I worked there for 3 directors. Yes. Really bad decision. And he was drinking. Wasn't it? So I said, I'm done. And my husband was right at Christmas and he said, promise me you won't look for a job for 30 days. I said, okay. And I wasn't really looking to have a couple of places reaching out to me.
sure, of course they were.
And just wasn't so everything. It was Christmas and my granddaughter was home from college and I was having fun. And 3 times in one hour.
Taller chair.
Reached out.
Now the whole room's gonna be.
Yeah, it'll be,